All right, guys, part 4 of our 5-part series. We've been looking at the 5 main areas of language. Hopefully you've caught the first 3 videos. If not, you can go back and do that when we're done. But today we're going to be talking about speech sound development, so don't go away. All right, hey Lingaroo Troop, welcome back. It's great to have you with us today. As I mentioned, we are in the middle of a 5-part series. We've already looked at vocabulary development. We've already looked at sentence development or sentence structure. We've looked at morphology or those tiny little units of meaning. And today we're going to be briefly looking at phonology or this area of speech sound development. I say briefly because we've already done an entire video about this. So I will give you a way to click that at the end as well so that you can go back and watch that video in its entirety. But today we're going to be kind of quickly reviewing that and then also talking about a few strategies, reviewing a few strategies, and then adding a couple more thoughts that you can take away from today's video as well. All right, so guys, as we talk about speech sound development, we talk about it kind of in these 2 different areas of articulation or the way we move our mouth and whether or not our voice is on or off or whether our tongue is up or down and kind of the mechanics of producing the individual speech sounds or how we move our articulators, our tongue, our teeth, our lips, and how we move those to form the individual sounds. And then we also talk about this area of phonology, which is more kind of a global way of thinking about the speech sound system in its greater sense or in a broader sense. We talked about patterns that kiddos do, right? We talked about final consonant deletion where they leave the ending off, where they say be, and it could be beat or beach or beam, right? They're just not producing those endings at all. We talked about fronting, or we think about fronting, where instead of doing the back sounds like k, K or G, they start doing the sounds in the front. So they may say, I dot a dough, or they may want the key to unlock the door and they say, give me the T, right? T for key. So those errors that they're making, those patterns that they're making, producing the front sounds instead of sounds in the back. We also see a pattern called stopping, where instead of some of the longer sounds like the sh or the z or the t or the s, they may make a stopped sound, right? So instead of shoe, they may say to, or instead of C, they may say T. Right? So that's an error of stopping, where they're stopping that airflow. There's another one called gliding, where they may do the W substitution for L or for R, right? We see this in the cartoons, the Wascally Wabbit, where he's not doing the R sounds. He's making a W substitution or a glided substitution for that sound. So there are tons of these patterns that we see. Then we also see kids who kind of get inventive and kind of make up their own patterns. But either way, it's more of a broader difficulty. It's not just single sounds. It's more than that. And it's patterns that our kiddos are making across their speech sound and across the phonological system as a whole. Okay, so some of the things you can do, one of the best things you can do is recasting. We've talked about this before, just in a positive, affirmative way. Recast the word. Oh, yes, you want to put on your shoe. I see that. Okay. And you're communicating with your child. You're engaging them in conversation in a positive way, but you are recasting the correct pronunciation of the speech sound in place of their arid production that they've said. Okay, and as you're doing this, the second thing that you can incorporate into your recasting is just direct teaching of the correct placement. Okay, if I want my child to produce a long sound, a sh or a z, and they're doing a stop sound, I can talk about that. right? I can say, oh, did you hear mommy? Mommy said shoo. I had a lot of air coming out of my mouth. My sound was a long sound, right? And just talk about what you did versus what they did and how it's different, and kind of helping to increase awareness or draw attention, again, in a positive way, to the difference of how you said it versus how their production sounded, right? You can also feign confusion. You can also say two. Oh, like the number 2? Is that what oh, you would, your shoe, right? And so you're kind of, as it is appropriate and as it's fitting for the situation. And as I've said from the beginning, you're the expert on your kiddo. You know them best. You know when to do this and when not to. There's kind of a fine line, right? We don't want our kids to get frustrated. We don't want them to feel silly. We're not making fun of them as we do this. But if it fits and it works, and it's every once in a while, it's okay to do this, to feign confusion and to make that contradiction or that comparison, to let them know that when they say two, it's a very different meaning to their listener than if they were to say a longer sound and produce shoe, okay? Okay, so a third strategy we talked about, you can incorporate books that address specific sounds, or books or objects that kind of create different sounds or make different sounds, right? Maybe it's that you have a car and you're going to make the shh, shh, shh for the car sound, or you're going to make a drum sound, a buh, 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 whatever it is. You can incorporate toys and you can incorporate books that will help to reinforce these, again, just in a natural play-based activity, right? You're not drilling it into them. You're not making them do anything other than what they would normally be doing, playing, but you're just incorporating some of this in and incorporating some of this into their everyday activities. Okay, the fourth thing I want you guys to think about is as you're correcting them, or as you're drawing attention, to do so in a positive way, rather than to say, no, that's not right? Nobody wants that. That doesn't feel good to any of us when we get called out or embarrassed sometimes in public. But to say, oh, I'm sorry, can you tell me that again? Or you could say, can you try that again? Oh, I like how you did, and again, you're incorporating it within tons of praise, and you're telling them in ways, tell me again, or try that again, versus no, that wasn't right. And so hopefully you can see the difference and try to start kind of reframing our thoughts and the ways that we're engaging with our kiddos about this, because chances are good your child is very aware, especially as they reach that 3 to 4 year old level, depending on the level of difficulty they're having. You may also be starting to see some emotionality, right, attached to this, some frustration when they're trying to get a message across to you and you just don't understand. You can see a lot of tantruming, right? You can see a lot of frustration that comes in conjunction with this. So as we're reinforcing, as we're correcting them, we want to do it as positively as we can, and say things like, tell me that again, or try that again, versus a lot of negatives and a lot of what might feel more punitive to our children. Okay, guys, the fifth thing I want you to think about, and this is a big do as I say, not as I do. If you've watched my videos, one of the things I do is I struggle with my rate of speech. I struggle with maybe talking a little too fast, and I think we all do. And I would encourage you, as you can, to think about slowing down your rate of speech. Now, please notice, I did not say tell your child to slow down. Right? That is not what I said. I said you, the mamas, the daddies, me, we need to slow down our rate of speech and create a more relaxed environment across the board, right? Again, mealtime is a great time to practice this. And again, we're starting baby steps because this is hard for us. But to start baby steps, to add in more pauses, to take more deep breaths, and to allow, again, around the table, more time for conversation. To say, oh, Johnny, I want to hear about your day. But first, I want Susie to tell us what happened at her school. I'll come back to you, Johnny. Right? Because we're giving Johnny more time. Because Johnny needs more time to put his thoughts together or to think about his speech sounds. So we're going to prep him, and we're going to go to sister, and then we're going to come back to Johnny and give him the ample time that he needs to not feel rushed and to not feel pressed to get it out. I see this so often, especially in families where there are multiple kiddos, right? There is this constant competition for who gets to talk next and who's going to get the floor. And then when they get the floor, how long do they get to keep it before they get, before somebody else comes in and steals the thunder and takes their time away and gets to talk over them. So be thinking about this, the overall rate of speech in your home as you start to slow down. As you start to create a more relaxed, natural environment, you'll be amazed at how quickly your child will also slow down, and that some of these speech sounds and some of the difficulty in language that they're having will become less and less. All right, so guys, I hope this has been helpful. If you haven't seen that longer video that we did on speech sound development, you're going to want to click right here so that you can see that. And if you haven't, check out the video about the 5 areas of language, and we'll see you next time on Lingaroo, where language comes to life.